Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about how do we log everything inside some servers where certain commands have been executed by different users, and how do we log them, by the way, right? So that is what we are going to find it out over here. And for that particular one, so usually in the enterprise organization, like big organizations, it is going to be using some paid tools, by the way, so which is like Power Broker kind of thing. So when you go with the Power Broker, kind of a thing, and so they track everything inside the server, and they kind of send it to the information to some centralized place. Basically, if you just understand this particular diagram, so all the everywhere in the system, whoever is accessing whatever the applications, like whatever the commands, whatever is being executed, and everything so get tracked by so the Power Broker utility, by the way. So this is how naturally happens, and even the Power Broker also enhances to an extent in such a way that so they provide a customized shell. So now by default you may be going with a Linux shell, bash shell when you log in. By default the Linux machines, whatever you get it, but usually when you actually log in with Power Broker, or you are utilizing Power Broker utility at a max, by the way, big organizations, what they do is they provide a customized shell like this. So you can see this here. Now however you are running the sudo, by the way, so maybe you run the pv run, something like this. So this is what even we're talking about, alternative to sudo. But however, even in some cases, okay, I'm not sure we can find out that information from the internet over here, but when you actually log in as well, your shell itself is a Power Broker shell, and where you will be even controlled what command you can execute, what command you cannot execute. Okay, that level customization is also possible on the enterprise scale, and that is what is definitely will be done by the big companies, by the way, so in order to track multiple people, okay, whoever is logging in and all. And also, like that the key pair mechanism, whatever we generally do, maybe when you go into the cloud training and all, or you learn the DevOps, by the way, a lot of people teachers who suggest they use the key pair and log into the server. So that itself is not at all the reality of the real-time scenario. Okay, wherever you have big companies, big projects, by the way, so who are very serious about the security, so no one encourages using the key pair, and always it is going to be a single sign-on. And when you do a single sign-on, even when you log into the server, in the worst case, most of the time today's world, you know to really log into the machine, but still if you log into the machines, and what will happen is they will track each and every command. And even certain companies, especially in the fintech world, especially like banks and all, what they do even is they literally record your screen as well. Okay, so that means they will provide the PuTTY access not from your local desktop. You have to go with some sort of a common UI where you can access the PuTTY from a web UI kind of a thing. So the tools like so the Orcon is one of the guys. So there are many tools in this area, by the way. So in these guys, what they will do is, so they will kind of ensure whatever you enter, by the way, so they literally record the screen even. So to that extent, the monitoring will happen. All right. So, by default, not by default. So basically, if you consider that, so to that extent, we don't want it, and we wanted to track each and everything which is happening in the system. And I'm not an enterprise company. I can't buy Power Broker, or I can't buy Orcon kind of a thing. So still, we can't we can't compromise the security aspect. So we need to know that, who is executing certain commands on the live machines, by the way. Even it is a small company, so we should be doing that, because tomorrow if something is happening, it is easy to track, so who has done that is one aspect, what they have done is another aspect, especially, right? So that is why we need to track each and every command. And some of the default things that comes with an operating system is not enough to track everything. So that is where what do we do is, so we kind of use some open source tools here to kind of collect the information or enable the security, some open source tools. And here today in this particular one, so we are going to talk about the open source tool which is Snoopy. Okay, so Snoopy is one of the open source tool, at least I have used in some of the projects. So Snoopy Logger is one of the tool which we have, and so this works seamlessly. Very fantastic tool that can help you in logging in each and every command you execute. Now, what is the problem that what we're talking about? Let's look into the problem and then let's look like what is actually Snoopy is actually doing here. So for that, actually, I'm taking a Linux box. This is the CentOS 8 machine. So this Snoopy compatible of the Red Hat family of I used, and also I know that it works with Ubuntu as well properly, not a problem. Now, if I just try to log in the information which is happening in the system, like let's say tail-f var log secure is the file that you are going to have. Now, if you look in, by the way, so whoever is executing the commands with, now for an example, if I use sudo ls, so that information is tracked. So saying that, so this user has executed this command at this point of time. But however, most of the times, what we generally do is when you have sudo access, people don't configure the sudo properly. That's where you generally gain the access, whatever you have, maybe sudo -i or even use sudo su-. Okay, you kind of do that, and you gain a separate access to the root user. And from now on, what happens is the commands, whatever you execute, will not be tracked by secure anymore. Okay, so this becomes this makes the system vulnerable, by the way. So like anyone can log into the system and using some methods, by the way, so they can avoid it. And which we don't want it to do this kind of a, we don't want it to get into that kind of scenarios. So what we generally can do here is we can go ahead and so configure the systems properly, so where we can track the things. Now a proposed solution, a full solution I would say here is we are going to look at only one part of installation of Snoopy, but however maybe this also can be extended to in such a way that maybe just let me put a diagram. So if you are using some logging system, by the way, maybe if you are using search or Splunk, okay, or any other third-party tool or OpenSearch. So any of these kind of log aggregation tools, if you are using, so those be used to monitor our logs as well, not monitor like so ship our logs. Now here what we are going to have is, so here and from this particular Linux server we are going to ship certain logs, by the way, to some centralized place. So maybe tools like I mentioned Elasticsearch, search or OpenSearch or Splunk. So these are the common tools that are widely used for storing the logs. Now what we generally do is we kind of so someone can I can, like let's say for an example, I can log into this server and I executed certain commands. I go and remove the log file, right? So I have sudo privileges, I have root privileges, by the way, and so at least like so they can go ahead and do that. So there is a lot of incapabilities directly if you go with a sudo, by the way. So it is not a great tool, by the way, unless until you empower that with some other things. Okay, simple sudo will not be a great approach as a security perspective. All right, now that's where we generally need to so kind of ship the logs, whatever is happening inside this particular server, into an Elasticsearch. So maybe in the next video we'll look into the full solution, but for now let's try to understand this Linux server, how do we monitor each and everything? At least the problem right now what we have is, if someone actually logged into some shell like sudo sudo will not start bothering about those particular things. This is the default behavior of the operating system, unless until you go and change that. And in order to avoid all your effort, you can achieve the things on your own as well. But however, that's a very larger effort, by the way. So to avoid that effort, we can take a software help here, and that software we are trying to take the help here is Snoopy, by the way. Snoopy is a wonderful tool, by the way, and it works seamlessly, like I already mentioned. It's also very seamlessly to manage as well. You can just go ahead and install, and I'll just take this and I log into that particular machine. So maybe I'll just try to use this software, and I'll try to run this command so that it will just install and run it. It's going to just install a couple of packages which is needed for it to install as well. And this script itself will going to configure everything what is needed in the system. So you don't need to extensively go and do some customized configuration as well. So this itself is by default going to take care of everything. So the packages are getting installed. Alright, so now the Snoopy is installed, and they're telling that if Snoopy need to be enabled for all the process, you need to either restart your system or restart all your services. I don't want to take button of finding out what services to reboot. So that's where I'll just try to reboot the whole system. So let the machine get rebooted completely. Now whatever the commands, whichever the shell you are executing, now it is going to just track everything. By the way, what it literally does is it installs certain PAM module. So Linux box uses PAM. So it is just going to use that particular pluggable authentication modules. PAM stands for pluggable authentication module, something like that. So sorry, privileged access management, maybe authentication module, if I'm that's okay. But yeah, so this kind of a additional configuration it will do, and it will help you in tracking things. So when you start doing the things from SSH itself, so it start tracking from right from there itself. Okay, so that was the idea. Now I'm going to keep the var log messages, not messages, sorry, secure. Yeah, all right. Now you can just go here and execute I login as a sudo su hyphen. So that information is being logged at least, and also after that ls. You see that I executed ls command. It is telling that information. All right. So here ps-ef. So I executed a ps-ef command. So it is actually giving ps-ef command. So everything is getting tracked, so who is getting executed what, by the way, so by using Snoopy. And this also can be customized to an extent. Even certain more columns you can add it. Okay, so that is where you can just track everything, by the way, as per our needs, right? Now the same log file usually in organizations will be shipped to some centralized systems, and that's where you can always check it out, the information directly in sitting in one place, by the way, so in Elasticsearch. Okay, even something goes wrong on the system, we can always sit on the Elasticsearch and analyze on this particular system anyone has executed any wrong commands or things like that. So everything gets tracked right there. So this is how we kind of track everything end to end in the system, and we are so going to have a proper security in place while we do the advanced logging in the system generally. All right. And in the organizations, once again, in enterprise organizations, this is a must and need option to be there some or other how to track it. So there are some third-party tools like Power Broker, which does seamlessly end to end, by the way. So there's a cost involved. But whereas there is, if you want to avoid the cost involved, you have to keep that cost in the engineering development, by the way. So like tools like Snoopy kind of a tools will help us in customizing that in a better way, even though we are not purchasing any tool. And maybe tools like Elasticsearch or something like that in a centralized place, we can hold that information. So who is actually doing what? All right. So see you in the next video. Thank you.